Do you want to know 2 ways to help your children understand having purpose? I'm Nicholeen Peck, and I teach all about parenting, good communications, all around the world through the lens of the principle self-government. And in this video, we're going to be talking about having purpose. In this video, I have a few personal stories that I'd like to share with you, as well as talking about 2 key things that you can do to help your family, especially your children, understand and live with more purpose. A little while ago, a mother that I was having a personal mentor call with asked me a question. She said, "Nicholeen, will you please make a video about purpose? My children are struggling understanding the purpose of their lives, and I really want them to know." She also said, "I think there's so much conflicting and confusing information out there. In fact, I think her children were seeing the world through a dark lens, a lens possibly of selfishness." As she was describing what was going on in her home and with her children, I could see that the children were facing a lot of confusing opinions about what the purpose of life really is. So many people have opinions about what the purpose of life is, but a person doesn't truly find happiness or security unless they center in on the truth of what purpose in life really is. So what are some of these opinions of the purpose of life? Well, I call these opinions North Stars. There are many people that have a variety of North Stars, including things like pleasure, money, power, prestige, ego. These are all North Stars. Some North Stars, like the ones I've just mentioned, lead us in a non-productive direction and truly are just things that gratify what our feelings are or what we want to feel inside about ourselves. But there are other North Stars that lead us in a very productive and purposeful direction. We're going to talk about those, but first I'd like to share with you a story about my son and my father. I am all about living a life of purpose. In fact, years ago, I created a family vision for my family. I called it the 20-year vision for the Peck family. And in this 20-year vision, we were all seated at a dinner table on Christmas Eve, 20 years in the future, talking about how we were living our individual purposes in life. We also created a picture of what the purpose of our family was. We called it our family vision. It was us living who we were meant to be. Do you believe that you are meant to be a certain type of person? Well, I do, and for many years I sought what is it or who is it that I am supposed to be? What kind of design is there for my life? Or do I just make it up as I go? I determined no. Every single person finds that real spark of happiness and that long-lasting joy when they find out who it is that they are supposed to be. Buddha says the purpose in life is to find your purpose in life and then live it. And even though I am not Buddhist, I know that that is sound advice because that is what everyone is looking for. Many people think that if they can become better than other people, have more pleasure, more comfort, more leisure, more ease, then somehow they will have found that life of purpose. But there are others that know that to have a truly purposeful life, that means that you have to do something for something greater than just yourself. My father was one of those people. Years ago, when he was just a young man, at the age of 19 years old, just graduated from high school, he got admitted to Stanford University. In fact, he got a scholarship to play on Stanford's soccer team. This was a dream for him. Not only did he love academics and excelled academically, but he enjoyed soccer, and he had played on his high school team. So this was a dream come true. When he asked Stanford if he could postpone the scholarship and the admittance to their school in order to serve a religious mission for his church, he was denied. This was heartbreaking for him because he had always wanted to serve a mission for his church, for his God. He told me when I was a young girl, Nothing was more important than doing what I knew it was God wanted me to do. So he had it out with God about it. He talked with him about it. And he decided that the most important thing he could do was give Stanford a no answer and decide to serve the mission for his church instead. When he did this, he felt peace inside. He knew he'd made the right decision, even though he had some heartbreak about his decision that he had to give to Stanford University. He never played soccer in college. He went on the mission for his church for a couple of years. He had a great time serving the people of Japan. But when he came home, he went to the regular state schools that were in his area instead of going to an Ivy League school and playing soccer. In fact, he didn't pursue any more sports or soccer. He pursued something entirely different. He went into education and ended up finding great happiness and peace in his life because he decided to be an educator. Before he made that decision of whether to serve God for a while or whether to pursue his dream of playing soccer in college, he didn't think of becoming a teacher. But afterward, he knew that he was supposed to become a teacher. What an amazing story. This changed me as a young person. In fact, I shared his story with all of my children. I'm going to tell you what happened when I told his story to one of my children and the significant impact it made on his life. But before I do, click the subscribe button now. You will not want to miss the content on this channel that relates to you having good communication and relationships with your children and helping them live the lives that they know they are supposed to live too. I told my father's story to all of my children as they were growing up. And little did I know the impact that it would make until my youngest son made a very profound decision, a very similar decision in his life. My son was 18 years old, and he had been invited to play soccer on a team that would travel throughout Europe. Not only being coached by world-famous footballers, but by playing other footballers all across the United Kingdom. This was a dream come true. He was so excited. We started attending meetings for this particular tour that would happen. As a club player and a high school soccer player, he could not be happier with this prospect. Then it occurred to him that the timing of this tour would happen at a time that he knew he wanted to be serving a religious mission for our church. Oh no! What would he do? He came to me and said, "Mom, what should I do?" And I said, "Porter, I can't make this decision for you. This is your life. You have to live your purpose. You need to go talk to God about what he wants you to do." "Oh, Mom, if you could just tell me," he said. "If you could just make it easier. You tell me what to do, Mom, and that's what I'll do." And I said, "I can't. You have to make this decision all on your own because it's your purpose." With a lot of prayer in his heart, he went and vocalized his concern, his dilemma to God because we're prayerful people. He came back to me a little while later. In fact, it was a couple of days later. And he said, "Mom, I'm not going to go to Europe. I'm not going to play soccer with the team in the United Kingdom. This is a hard decision to make, but I know it's the right decision for me at this time in my life, and it's going to help me have purpose in my life." I was so proud of him. I knew this was a hard decision that he had made, but he stepped forward at that point with full purpose of heart and faith that he had made the right decision. And now he is serving a mission for our church, and he's not playing soccer. In fact, the people all around him keep giving him soccer balls so that he can touch up on his skills. But he says, "Mom, I don't have time for any of that. I have things to do. I have a purpose here, and I know there'll be plenty of time for soccer after I'm done with these 2 years of my life." I couldn't be happier as a mom. Even though he's worried about getting a little chunky, putting on a few pounds, I think that he will be happy forever that he made this decision. Let's talk about 2 things that you can do to help your children make similar decisions, or decisions that they know they're supposed to make, so that they end up living lives of purpose. The first thing that you can do has already been covered, and that is be the example. Live a life of purpose yourself and talk about it with the children. So you make hard decisions all the time. Am I going to quit my job and raise my children or not? Am I going to skip that trip so that I can stay home with the children or not? You living this life with your family, parenting them, putting your whole heart into that relationship with the family, saying no to some of the fun, frivolous things because you know other things are more important, is you living a life of purpose. You know, there are 8 missions or purposes that a person could have in their lives. Those 8 missions include feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, healing the sick, comfort the lonely, teach the ignorant, create beauty, liberate the captives, and preach the gospel. These are 8 things that you will find in all the lives of great people who have lived in the world. One of those things speaks out to them. Did you know that being a parent is all 8 of those things? All 8. That means that parenting your children is the mission of all missions. When you do that mission, it equips you for any other thing that you might need to do in your future life, because you have now done all 8 things at the same time that you could do to live a full life of purpose. So when you are being that parent, you are showing them, you are living the example, but talk to them about that. In fact, tell them that you enjoy making those sacrifices that you have to make to be that parent that you want to be. Tell them. They'll follow your example. So remember earlier I talked about those North Stars and how some people have very non-productive North Stars. They may push them toward all kinds of effort that they make. You know, North Stars like money, power, comfort, leisure, pleasure. I think pleasure and comfort are probably the top North Stars that people have in our modern society. Well, I want to feel comfortable. Whatever I need to feel comfortable. The certain type of food I need for pleasure or comfort. The clothing I need for pleasure or comfort. The house I need for pleasure or comfort. The car I need for pleasure or comfort. The job I need for pleasure or comfort. The relationship that I need for pleasure or comfort. People are consumed with pleasure and comfort. I recently heard a story from a man talking about advice he had gained from his mother back in the early 1900s. And he said that his mother was talking to him one day about a hard task that he had to perform. And his mother said, "Of course it's hard. It's supposed to be hard. Life is supposed to be hard." So people in the early 1900s were raised with this ideology that life's supposed to be hard, that's just what you do. You go through hard things. You go through the hard bits of life, and in the end, you feel good because of it. That is so different than what we are facing today. People today think life is supposed to be pleasurable and comfortable. In fact, if it's too hard, they assume something might be going wrong instead of going right, as this man learned back at the early 1900s. So 100 years later, we find ourselves in a place where we think exactly opposite. Now, we cannot forget that we are building our lives on the backs of men like this who think that doing hard things is what life is all about. Wow. Wow, so what are we doing to our children? What are they going to think about hard things? Their North Stars might be comfort, which means that if they think life's supposed to be comfortable, they'll be looking for every person around them that is not making their life comfortable and using them as an excuse for all of their problems. They will be finding people to point fingers at instead of finding the confidence and the courage to stand up and face their trials, their real purpose in life. I've been pregnant 8 times and I have 4 children. So I'm at 50% on my birth rate for myself. Most people don't go through that many miscarriages. But you know what? I'm glad that I did. Because every single time that I lost a baby, I ended up finding more answers about what life was really about. I recognized I could do hard things. I could handle grief and sorrow and pain. More and more, I felt this as I faced yet another loss, another setback or heartbreak. I'm glad for those struggles, even though I wouldn't wish them on anyone. But who I've become and the way that I can live my life is in big part due to struggles just like those. So what does it mean really to live a life of purpose? When a person lives a life of purpose, that means that they see their life as something that was decided before they even really were living it. They see that there is an end goal for their life. Their life has a certain intention. There's a design. In fact, if you look up the word purpose in my favorite dictionary, which is Webster's 1828 dictionary, you see that that's exactly what purpose means. It means intention, design, or recognizing that you are predestined to do something with your life that you have to find to do. I love how Webster really hits at the core of what it means to live with purpose. So when a person lives with purpose, they know who they follow. They have a certain allegiance that aligns them with a greater power. There are 4 different allegiances that a person could have in their life. 3 of those 4 allegiances will not lead a person to feeling satisfied, fulfilled with a life of purpose. Only 1 of the 4 does that. So let's talk about the 3 allegiances that are not going to be useful in helping us live a life of purpose. Allegiance number 1 is an allegiance to evil. Now, I don't know many people who have sold their souls to the devil. I know it's probably out there somewhere, but most people are trying to do good things, not bad things. However, some people will give in to certain feelings like vindictiveness, that kind of thing, and sometimes they could end up having in those moments an allegiance to evil. So we want to steer clear of that one, obviously. The other 2 might not be as obvious. So another allegiance that we want to steer clear of is the allegiance to self. So when you are just worried about serving yourself and pleasing yourself, then your North Star is always going to be pleasure and comfort. How many golf games can I play? Or who is going to give me the next piece of cheesecake? Or whatever that you might be looking for in your happy vision of your day. In fact, you'll become very discouraged when you can't control every bit of your day, when you have an allegiance to self. So allegiance to self leads to a lot of upset, and it leads to broken relationships because you start using other people to get what you want. People who end up falling into traps of narcissism usually have an allegiance to self. So what is our other allegiance that we want to steer clear of? Allegiance to others. Now that sounds interesting. You would think if you're doing things to serve others that would be a good thing, right? An allegiance to others means that you find your sense of fulfillment or purpose in how other people are feeling. Wait, that person feels happy, so life must be good. That person feels angry, so life must not be good. That is a very passive position to be in. In fact, you can very easily be controlled if your allegiance is to others. So what is that 4th allegiance? That allegiance that is going to bring you to true purpose in life. That is an allegiance to goodness, or an allegiance to God. The word good comes from the Latin root of God. To have something be good, that actually means that it is God-like. So if you have an allegiance to being good or following God, then you will be following a higher power than yourself. And usually you will be stepping out of your comfort zone and living a life of duty. This leads to happiness. So if you want your children to have more purpose and meaning in their lives, then you need to talk with them about the hard decisions that you make make and why. Why are you doing it? Talk about allegiances and where your allegiance lies and how much peace that gives you in your life. If you've enjoyed this video, I'm pretty sure you'll enjoy my next video, which is actually a full class dedicated to helping you overcome some of those traps in your communications and your relationships that you might not recognize you're falling into. The video is called The Expectation Trap versus the Cycle for Success. Click on the link to that video now. I'll see you there.